Hi, dear friends. I haven't been on here for a while. I was relocating to Greece, starting a new employment. I'm very happy about the transition, but it's kept me very busy. This week, however, I am called to show up here and get back in the flow and just let it unfold organically. I'm not here for, to count the heads and my following, and it's a very new initiative. I've started the Fully Human podcast, and there's going to be developments in that project onward that are not going to be limited to a podcast, but I'm still staying committed to having these conversations, sometimes monologues where I share my ideas, and I would like to certainly have more interviewees invited here. So something that really tickled my imagination and provoked my intellect and touched my heart this week simultaneously was an online exchange that happened with Alison McDowell. Do you know who she is? She has a YouTube channel. Maybe she's got 20,000 people or more following her. She's not like huge influencer, but she is definitely brilliant person to follow in her analysis of anything that has to do with technology, all the ideological frameworks that are surrounding these innovations. And I really followed her all throughout since COVID. And she was one of these brilliant minds that wouldn't succumb to the divisions of Democrat, Republican, and would look at things very objectively from a pulled back perspective and offering examples of the funding, the institutions that are connected to academia, connected to certain individuals in the public sphere and politicians that have been elevated to hero status, and just being that inconvenient voice that was unmasking all of it and saying, look, they're all kind of working for technocracy. And I was like, yeah, she is the one. I mean, I really, I've shared her videos a lot. And anyway, the algorithm is in charge these days, isn't it? So we have no control. I wasn't seeing many videos from her. I was aware that she relocated to Arkansas, bought a new house, and is now living with a garden and with a new close-knit community and enjoying life offline very much. And because indeed she was very wrapped up in this analysis of who's connected to whom and what's going on in the bigger frame, and but not conspiratorial, like very, very well evidenced research. It would blow your mind if you go back in the archives. And anyway, but I wasn't aware of any change of her sort of conceptual lens. And so I was surprised when the algorithm started showing me videos again of her talking about how likening life to a game. I think she even said, not simulation, but participatory universe where everything is possible, and sort of like putting things on a level playing field, not really making an argument for or against certain things. I do have a challenge with that. I'll tell you, it's not about being righteous in excessive ways, and it's really not about having a moralizing tone about what people should do. But I'm very passionate about being a bridge between the worlds of communal offline spaces, grassroots movements that are in resistance through non-participation with the system that is unfolding right now, at the same time while maintaining awareness of the system, so we can remain relevant in our movements, so we can pivot, so we can also respond in certain healthy ways and constructive ways to what's going on. So basically, not checking out completely, having one foot here and one foot here, and being the bridge and becoming a balancing act, a work of art, if you will, in these pressing times. Why do I advocate for that? I think it builds resilience, but also keeps us in check, to not really go into some escapist storytelling. And again, when I mention storytelling, that's one of the things I contended with on Alison's one of her recent videos. I made comments, and then she not just commenting, but creating a video in response. Maybe 30 minutes she spoke about my comments on her channel. And I was like, oh, cool. Okay, I made some ripples there to enliven this conversation. It's a very important conversation. How do we continue to deeply care for the collective, for, not just take our own experiences and just remain insular and say, this is the reality, this is my immediate reality, this is my subjective bubble, and this is how it is. And I will just disconnect from this because it's negative and destructive. And it's, my response will be to negate that reality, essentially. Like, how do we, how do we find a moderate response that isn't completely unplugging and losing our citizen participation, losing our agency in some of these processes that are unfolding? I mean, I'm not saying like, okay, yeah, somebody will go live in the forest eventually because the world has become so dystopian and they just find no meaning in these structures, and so they have to commune with others and create a completely alternate reality. And that's certainly what I did for like 8 years in Costa Rica, or I was attempting to, and I saw how many challenges exist within that paradigm when you completely want to disconnect, when you want to say, my act of rebellion is to not participate in that system and exit the matrix. And what that really actually means, like realizing there's no complete way to exit the matrix. I congratulate anyone who's doing it and working on it, but they have to tackle some serious issues, from food sovereignty to human health to alternative economic systems, money. Like, you can't, wherever you are, you can't claim to be really in an alternative reality if you're using the same currency as the system that we're embedded in. And if you're subject to the same surveillance tools, and if you are, if you're being mined for data and things like that, so there's a lot of make-believe stories that have emerged in resistance to this, these challenges that we're all facing today. And again, on the other end, if you're just oblivious to the alternative stories and participating fully in mainstream society, you're really not clued into some of the overarching themes that are shaping human consciousness today. And I do believe technocracy is unfolding, even though Allison is not using that word anymore. I do believe that we have to preserve our humanity, but we also have to keep a balance. How do we step away without completely disconnecting from certain useful ways of participating or offering pushback to some of the things that are taking place? Because no matter where we go, is what I've determined through my personal experience, we are still going to be faced with the same issues. We're still breathing the same air. We're drinking the same water. Let's say if certain if certain governments or supranational institutions decide to spike our water with nanotechnology globally without any transparency or review, prior consent, then we're all going to be, become infiltrated by that. And I don't care what spiritual lens you are utilizing or what your belief systems are. At the end of the day, I don't care what quantum realm you're working with, you will be affected physically, and we can't deny the physical reality that is in connection with the other realms in the spirit. We can't just say, oh, I'm going to transmute it by thinking it away. Like, it doesn't exist because I'm not even going to give it power. But I don't think it works like that, guys. I mean, unless you're really an ascended master. I've said this before. If you have these kinds of transmutation powers like the Christ, okay, fantastic. You can overcome the transhumanist project like this. But we're all aspiring, are we not? And we have to remain grounded. And so I guess my main issue with her new adopted perspective is that everything's a story. You have your story and I have my story, and everything is just storytelling. And you know what? It's not just her. This is a pattern I'm seeing with people that have become either really burnt out as a result of trying to quote unquote fix the world through their activism, or people that are just actually overwhelmed emotionally and psychically. And so, for the sake of their sanity, they need this buffer, they need to insulate and need to detach. And then these proclamations are made. It's a simulation, it's a game, and it's a story. So, is that really true? Yes, we are a storytelling species. However, let's see, if we go too far into that mindset, we make things in this realm that we're all experiencing. We all have hunger, we all have pain, we all have disease, we all are dealing with these aspects of being in a physical body. If we adopt the mindset that it's all a story, then we start to care less about what others maybe are experiencing. Like, I think it interferes with our empathy, with the collective story, to just override with our own storytelling what we think the world is. And apparently, each one of us is our own observer. And yes, in the quantum realms, the observer can shift reality significantly. However, we cannot wish things away. We cannot pretend that what we're going through and experiencing is the only reality and shape our response based on this exclusion of the other. So these concepts are very trendy. They're usually seen as more elevated than the concept of we must change something about, we must create betterments for humanity. Some people even take issue with right and wrong continuously from coming from the influence of Eastern thought primarily. There's no right and wrong. It's all good, it's all perfect. And yes, maybe there is such a non-dual pulled out perspective, but are we residing there on an everyday basis? Is that how we make decisions? If someone ended up under a bridge in the middle of a harsh winter, homeless, I'm pretty sure that they're going to adopt a different perspective on what's preferable. They will say, well, it's better to actually have shelter than not have shelter right now. I'm giving a very, very super fundamentally basic example, but how else can we address these arguments that can just really go into la la land and shape our consciousness in a way that isn't reciprocal, that isn't connected? And while we're saying that we're connected in such a grand way, we're superseding all the conflict of the world. We're superseding all human pain and suffering because we're choosing a different frame and we're choosing a different lens. And here's another favorite of mine, I'm out of the box. Everyone who thinks they have a better perspective say that they're out of the box, but then at the same time, they are denying the concept of better, even though they're coming from a place that pretty much sounds like, I'm more enlightened than that. Let's just pull back. Let's just really examine things from the bird's eye view. And again, there's nothing wrong with the bird's eye view, and there's nothing wrong with being zoomed in through a microscope and examining something really, really up close and intimate. The question is whether we can navigate the entire spectrum of that human experience and acknowledge it and incorporate it and integrate it, not deny it, not say, oh, these people over there, they're just in such a lower realm, or oh, these people over here, they're so high, they're on such a high frequency, they don't engage with this kind of stuff. Well, we are a human family, and all of it is happening on earth right now. And of course, you can choose to build your relationship to it, but to say it's all a story is really too far removed for what I feel is helpful and constructive. I wouldn't say it's wrong in some kind of fundamental sense, but it's certainly, if we're looking at things from a more utilitarian perspective, and I think we need to, because what is the need of the human family right now? How can I best contribute? Yes, maybe I can best contribute in living in a close-knit community and treasuring these connections. But however, are you also remaining an observer? At least an observer to what's unfolding for other groups of humanity, for other countries, for other brothers and sisters, and maybe that are not in the immediate village where you live. I guess media has created this false clairvoyance for all of us to know simultaneously what's going on through, looking at a media screen and just know what's happening in other parts of the world. And I understand that a lot of people find this very disempowering because oftentimes there's not much we can do about it. So I'm all for channeling our efforts into what we can actually do, that we can affect, that we can implement. I'm all for that. But that involves discretion and discernment. It doesn't come from a place of disconnect. I don't want to know, it doesn't exist. I'm going to shift this with my, positivity and all of that, because guess what? It is a collective challenge, and there are going to be multiple instances where it's going to come knocking on your door. You could be, the most incredible community that is based on the principles of love and peace. And then one day you're going to get an official knock on your door and tell you this piece of land that you're on is no longer yours. Or, you're going to try and get to the bank and your account will be blocked. Or you're going to try to make a phone call and you're no longer going to be eligible to surf the internet based on your digital surveillance laws and what is considered misinformation and what your background entails and how you're persona non grata. So all these things are going to land in our laps, people. I don't think they can be transcended unless you have created the alternative systems. But these alternative systems have to be tangible. They have to be structures that we can operate within in this physical realm. Financial, communal, barter-based, whatever they are, psychospiritual, emotional support. But they can't just remain in the spiritual world and in the conceptual framework and say, oh, it's all a story, or we're just going to transcend it if we meditate together all day. It's not going to work. It's a very comprehensive approach that we all have to take on in order to become effectively sovereign. If that's your journey, is to be sovereign from these superstructures, these unjust systems, these exploitive mechanisms. You have to really think this through, and we have to have ways to discuss these things in a very transparent way and not negate each other's responses. And we have to integrate our knowledge and our innovation and everything that we come up with that is a solution-based approach rather than a mental escapist, oh, this doesn't exist because now I'm going to apply some quantum imagination skills. This is in the realm of the virtual. I think the powers that be actually want to shove us in that direction, in the realm of the virtual and away from embodiment and away from sensing and feeling what's actually going on. They want to, cloud up our consciousness and interfere with our not just cognitive abilities, but intuitive abilities. And energetically, we're being modified through the electromagnetic fields. So that's an additional layer and a very important one. But anyway, this is kind of like my delivery about what took place and what I was taking an issue with in terms of when I hear these statements. I'm like, wow, that's Alison McDowell. How did she conclude that? And again, I don't know her spiritual influences. She did comment to me in a kind way. Oh, look up this and look up that. And I'll do some research. I quickly did. I think it's based in Sufism and esoteric Islam. And that's fine, what she's talking about and how it intersects with, with quantum reality. But again, I think it's borderline dangerous to tell people that everything is just a story and relegate it to a story. Or even to use the word simulation, then you pretty much, you can go align with Elon Musk then in that case, because he's got enough videos on how everything is a simulation. Not only is it a materialist machine-like metaphor, But again, it's playing into the hands of the movers and the shakers right now. They really want us to feel that this physicality, this embodiment, this preciousness of being human in flesh and blood is somehow imaginary, uh, up for grabs. Why would they want that? Why would they want us to disconnect from our bodies? Any ideas? Why would they want to belittle the physical realm? I just want you to all pause with me and start thinking. I've mentioned it before in other episodes here, but when you disconnect from the physical, you become much easier to manipulate in the realm of the virtual. You become ungrounded, and you really it really gets into this reality bending moment of not knowing what's true and what isn't true, because you've stopped receiving signals through this integration of your physical with the spiritual. You cannot take the physical out of the equation, because we're all spirits incarnated into physical form, and the physical form is not to be looked down upon. Yeah, I know. It's a hassle to be in the human body and to be vulnerable and to have to experience pain and all these challenges. And yet, it's part of the divine design to, I will say it again, the highest is being integrated with the lowest, and the lowest becomes the highest. So we're in this circular evolutionary process together. We're not disconnected from the highest, and we're not disconnected from the lowest. And this beautiful vessel is both a receiver and a transmitter and the transmutation space for this evolution to take place. So no, we don't want to be told that reality is not real and everything is just some kind of generated model that you can tweak. And today my story is this, and tomorrow my story is something else. And then, well, I can change it anytime. Like, why don't we just view everything with levity? It's so much fun. Well, that's appealing. That's appealing because of the massive suffering that humanity is going through. It's appealing, but it's not true. It's not true. There is an objective spiritual realm that we all reside in that has its spiritual hierarchies and laws of operation. And as much as you want to see yourself as the ultimate creator in the quantum realm, you are a co-creator. You're not a creator. You're working with creation and with creator and other co-creators. But let's not get carried away to say that, oh yeah, because I have this infinite nature that is my potential, I'm already my infinite self. You're not your infinite self already. You can experience glimpses of that and keep incorporating them into your onward journey. But to claim that you are that, and many do that in the New Age and different gurus, it's a form of spiritual narcissism to say that you are that already, and that there's nothing to be done, there's nothing that you need to do, and there's no effort to be made. You're already there. Such a psyop. I have to call it out. I love you all. Thank you for listening. Thank you for giving me this time. Time is so precious with so many competing channels and spokespersons, and it's, if you watch this video till the end, however many did, I thank you deeply from my heart, because I'm not doing this for any gains. I'm doing this out of the purity of my intention. You'll decide if I'm honest about that. Have a beautiful day and weekend, and I hope to connect with you soon with an amazing writer. I've been trying to get this writer on the podcast, but he's in a different time zone. So we'll make it happen soon. Have a good one. Cheers.